Sport on 4 with Stepstone Online Recruitment.
Welcome to Checkered Flag. This week we're back with the very exciting V8 powered DTM Masters, this time from the Sachsenring in the former East Germany. A very different test from the Norrisring street circuit that played host to rounds 5 and 6.
The flat-out dual carriageways at Norrisring always provide plenty of action, and Joe Winkelhock muscled his way into the lead ahead of Marcel Tiemann's Mercedes. Peter Dumbreck was in the thick of the action too, as was the Opel of championship leader Manuel Reuter, until he threw it all away. Audi was still struggling with their all-new cars, but it was the Holzer Opel team celebrating as Joe Winkelhock took his first win of the season. And to add yet more action, the start of round 6 was accompanied by rain. Winkelhock the initial leader, but as the drivers struggled with 400 horsepower on slicks on the wet track, the question was who would pit first? Winkelhock for one, while Peter Dumbreck stayed out on slicks, led the race, then paid the price. Perfect pit work and precision driving netted Bernd Schneider his third win of the season and the lead of the championship. The Mercedes man now leads Opel's Reuter by a slender 3 points, with Winkelhock third and Marcel Fessler fourth, heading east into Sachsenring between Leipzig and Dresden in the former East Germany. Qualifying at the track saw Brit Darren Turner setting the initial pace in his Rosberg run Mercedes, 1 minute 20.633 over a 90-mile-an-hour average. Meanwhile, the Audi of Chris Nissen was improving, but not enough. And just as the dust was settling, it was another Brit going even faster. Peter Dumbreck down in the 1 minute 19s. The battle was now on. First, Uwe Altson's Opel went quicker. Then it was Manuel Reuter's turn. Pole position, perhaps, but Dumbreck was quickly back on track to put Mercedes back on top. Then it was the turn of championship leader Bernd Schneider. He was looking good for pole position too. Then this happened. But it was the veteran 50-year-old Klaus Ludwig who'd pit Peter to the post. 26-year-old Dumbreck had to speculate on being beaten by a man old enough to be his dad. Not only that, Ludwig's pole position, his 15th of his career, made him the first man ever to break the 1 minute 19 bracket at the Sachsenring. 60,000 spectators on race day and a home hero to follow, Saxony's Thomas Jaeger.
Well, it's quite a nice circuit for me because for the driver it's very hard. It's going up and downhill, and well, you have to be really concentrated, and I think we're going to have really big fights and a nice race weekend, I hope so.
Onto the grid then for round 7 of the German Touring Car Masters. Ludwig on pole position, Peter Dumbreck right alongside. Row 2 of the starting grid, and it's Manuel Reuter and Joe Winkelhock in the Opel V8s. Row 3 of the starting grid, Opels again, Uwe Altsson of Germany, Stefano Modena of Italy. The next Mercedes come up 7th and 8th, Marcel Tiemann and Marcel Fessler. Row 5 of the grid, completing the top 10, Pedro Lamy of Portugal and the Opel of Eric Ellery of France. But down in 11th place on the starting grid, the championship leader, Bernd Schneider, not a happy man. Rolling start, though, for 30 laps of the Sachsenring, the first time the DTM series has ever been into the east of Germany. And the field heads through the final chicane. The lights will go to green as the horsepower is unleashed. And it is Ludwig and Dumbreck side by side into turn 1 alongside me in the commentary box. Chris Goodwin glued to the monitors and a big move at the back.
Yep, that was Pedro Lamy taking a dive down the inside and all sorts of carnage taking place. Very optimistic manoeuvre there from Lamy, and he's hit more than one driver.
Stefano Modena spins out, hid by Lamy. Alpsen mixed up in that as well. And there's Marcel Fessler. A lot of smoke coming from the back of that Mercedes. But it's the other black Mercedes at the head of the field. Klaus Ludwig leads from Peter Dumbrecht. Then the yellow and white of Manuel Reuter already up into third position. And damage there on the front of Lamy's car. Meanwhile, Stefano Modena pleading for a push in the Opel Astra. And that bodywork is looking very precarious. Oh, there it goes, over the roof of the Mercedes, down onto the trackside, and that is not going to help Pedro Lamy's aerodynamics.
Luckily that bonnet made of very light carbon fibre flew off the racing line, but Pedro Lamy now, he'll have to come into the pits. There's no way the aerodynamics of that car will be working anywhere near well enough for him to continue in the race.
Joe Winkelhock there in the red Opel Astra. Then comes the orange car of Eric Ellery. Meanwhile, in the gravel trap, Christian Abt takes a look at the front end of his Audi. But the battle on between the Opels here, the Opel V8 Coupes and the black car starting to move up now. Uwe Alpsen back onto the tail of Eric Ellery. But at the head of the field, still Klaus Ludwig. Peter Dumbrecht doing a great job here, holding back Manuel Reuter, and I'm pretty sure that's team orders. He's running just off the pace there. And heading down into the first chicane, Dumbrecht still leads Manuel Reuter, the man who's got a challenge and get the championship points from this weekend to keep on track. Meanwhile, right down the field, still Bernd Schneider trying to make up the ground. And every time they can keep this yellow and white Opel back, the two Mercedes drivers in front are helping Bernd Schneider and Mercedes-Benz score the championship points. Car number 4, Joe Winkelhock still there. Let's take another look though at that start, Chris.
Well, looking at the left-hand side there, Pedro Lamy's got himself squeezed between the black Mercedes and the pit wall. He's braked extremely late and tipped Modena into the spin. He's continued. Modena's backed into the gravel trap and got stuck. But behind Lamy there, all sorts of carnage. Cars going off the road on the left and the right.
But one of the casualties there, Marcel Fessler, Swiss driver, and well, it looks like work going on the back of the car there, more than just a tyre change.
Yeah, it looks like Lamy hit his right rear corner, so damage to the wheel, tyre and suspension.
No such problems for the men, though, at the head of the field, and it's still Klaus Ludwig leading Peter Dumbrecht, then Manuel Reuter. We're riding with Stefano Modena now. He's rejoined, he's effectively 2 laps down, and Modena really going for it.
Yeah, he's far from pleased with that first corner incident. He does need to make sure that his car is running fine for the second race, but the way things are going, he stands every chance of scoring points.
Well, Eric Ellery there throwing the dirt in Uwe Alpsen's face, battling for 5th and 6th places. But ahead of them now, still Klaus Ludwig and Peter Dumbrecht. Manuel Reuter, the best of the Opels, in third, ahead of Winkelhock, Ellery and Alpsen, a solid phalanx now of the Opel Coupes. And then come 2 more of the Mercedes, Thiemann and Jaeger, and Thomas Jaeger out of the action into the pits. Jaeger, the home hero's race is over. Comes from Chemnitz just up the road, and this will be a big disappointment for his fans. Jaeger, the first of the drivers from the former east of Germany, really to make it through into the big time. But this time his race is over. He'll now have to think about starting from the back of the grid for race 2. Meanwhile, the battle of the Opels still continues. Ellery versus Alpsen, and Marcel Thiemann closing in.
On board now with Thiemann. We've got a great view of the battle in front as the cars now come downhill into the first corner. Any of the drivers familiar with racing in the UK have compared this circuit as a cross between Alton Park and Donington Park. A real challenge.
Now look back behind the orange and the black Opels. Then comes the blue and white Mercedes, and now right behind there in 8th place, Bernd Schneider up through the field and closing in on Marcel Thiemann. 5th and 6th places continue their battle. Uwe Alpsen taking a very, very wide line through the right-hander. Carries the speed back up the hill. That closes him in back onto the tail of Eric Ellery. But look behind the second of those 2 Mercedes. That is where really it's all about in the championship. And I'm pretty sure Bernd Schneider is not going to be held up very much by Marcel Thiemann as the second Mercedes there continues to close in. And look at the speed. Schneider carrying through into the corners there. Bernd Schneider really on the limit.
A surprisingly poor performance there from Bernd Schneider in qualifying, but he's really making up for it now. Team orders, or teamwork, more should I say, really synonymous with the Mercedes team in the DTM, so I don't expect Bernd Schneider to be stuck behind his teammate for too long.
Keeping it nice and tidy. Quite a bumpy circuit, this of course in the east of Germany, where it gets very, very cold in the winter. It's a big struggle for the crews here to keep this tarmac smooth because it gets cracked in the winter by Final chicane now, slingshots the car onto the start-finish straight. I reckon this is it, over the brow. Watch out for Bernd Schneider, closing in on his teammate Thiemann, watching in his mirrors, keeps off the racing line. Down the inside goes Bernd Schneider. Through into turn 1, bounces over the curbs, now around into turn 2, and there you can see Schneider starting to pull away. A little dab on the brakes there, left foot braking.
Yeah, just keeping the car tight as it just goes left then right there, but the Mercedes personnel looking quietly confident. Bernd Schneider really running at an extraordinary pace at the moment.
Well, Hans-Werner Aufrecht, the boss of AMG, will be a very happy chappy. The man who he has snatched away from BMW many years ago now, Klaus Ludwig, coming up. He's already got 34 wins in DTM racing over the years, the 88 and 94 champion. He's won Le Mans. And don't forget, he was actually teammate and just as fast as BAR driver Riccardo Zonta when they shared a car to win the FIA GT Championship. Meanwhile, Stefano Modena, ex-Formula 1 driver, drove for Tyrrell and Jordan and Eurobrun in the 1980s. And Stefano Modena, very quick indeed, but out on his own.
Yeah, just on board there with Stefano Modena. He's really having to work quite hard on various sections of the racetrack. As you said earlier, quite bumpy, but the Opels don't seem to be coping with that bumpy nature of the road as well as the Mercedes.
And look at this, fastest laps now being equally split. Schneider now just going slightly faster than the man ahead of him. Uwe Alsen really now going to have to watch his mirrors. Alsen's still on the attack, trying to close in on Eric Hellery. And if you look closely at the front end of the Opel Astras, you'll see the front wheels cambered in very steeply. Opel had an understeer problem here in the test sessions prior to the race, and you can see there the huge amount of negative camber that wound on. And surely that's going to make the car pretty hard to drive.
Well, any improvement with the race car always comes with a price attached. If you run more camber, as you see there, the Opel's really struggling now after a few laps. Any increase in camber does have a price to pay in terms of tyre wear, so the tyres don't last quite so well when you angle them quite as steeply as the Opels are running today.
So Bernd Schneider, still the man on the attack, fastest man on the circuit, and still there in that 7th place at the moment, chasing Uwe Alsen and Eric Hellery. And Eric Hellery there starting now to ease his way back in onto that 4th place man, Joe Winkelhock. Winkelhock, of course, the winner of the first of the races at Norrisring, but this is a very difficult type of circuit. And funny enough, although it's a clockwise circuit, it actually wears the right-hand tyres out quicker. Why is that?
But it's a combination of slow and fast corners. The first half of the lap effectively made up of fairly slow corners, but as you get halfway around the lap, there's a series of very fast left-hand bends, all of which take a real toll on the right-hand front tyre.
Christian up there watching the monitors intently, his car out of action and out of the race, and the word is that they're not able to fix that car even in time for the 2nd race, so another big disappointment for the AB Sportsline Audi team. Meanwhile though, the battle on for Bernd Schneider to ease his way at the leaderboard. 3 Opels ahead of him, but still at the head of the field. Peter Dumbreck doing a superb job of riding shotgun. Oh, and off! That's Winkelhock! Off and out in the Opel. Winkelhock was in 4th position behind Manuel Reuter. He is now in the barrier.
Midway through one of those very fast, long left-handers, a very strange place to go off, so I can only imagine some kind of front suspension or tyre failure. Just look again, a plume of tyre smoke as the car leaves the track. That does point to tyre failure.
Well, smoking Joe Winkelhock in more than just name, and taking advantage of that, Bernd Schneider right on the right side of our pictures on the replay, now right up on the tail of Uwe Alsen, and of course that has now moved him up into 6th position, so it's more points now, more prizes for the man who leads the championship. Manuel Reuter still there in that 3rd place, but all the time the man who's his rival for the championship is getting closer and closer.
Of course, it's one thing overtaking fellow Mercedes, but he's got 2 of the hardest drivers in the DTM to overtake, and they're driving Opels, so they're not going to make it quite as easy for him.
Of course, it's going to go down to tyre wear as well, because we're getting into the mid-stages of the race now, a 30-lap race, and as the tyres start to wear, the Mercedes seem to be getting the advantage. Ludwig and Dumbreck pulling away now at the head of the field from Manuel Reuter in 3rd place. Then 4th, 5th and 6th we're watching. Oh, and not for long, because that is Uwe Alsen off on the same corner as Winkelhock.
Yet again, another Opel off at the exit of a very fast left-hander, so things not looking too good. And again, look at the right front. The tyre has definitely deflated. He's got a puncture.
Now, Chris, just watching this again, there you can see Bernd Schneider right behind. Alston's car just going straight on, off into the gravel trap. Is this as a result of those suspension changes?
Well, it could well be. Certainly the Opels seem to be struggling to keep their tyres intact, the right front. It is the hardest work tyre here on this racetrack, but certainly it's quite unusual to have two tyres going exactly the same way on different cars.
Of course, these cars aren't front-wheel drive like British touring car racers, they're rear-wheel drive. But of course they've got that big engine pushing everything forwards. The steering doesn't... Oh! And that is Winkelhock trying to get back out of the gravel trap. He's obviously realised Alston could do it, and he has got so near, yet so far to getting back on that tarmac, because that is bogged down on its belly. It ain't going no further. Now, Bernd Schneider piling the pressure on Eric Hellery for that fourth position. If he can find a way past the Frenchman, and he takes a very wide line going in there, though, that is confidence in your car.
Well, just look at the difference between the two cars. The Mercedes running so much faster, really, than the Opel. Eric Hellery doing a very good job, running quite a defensive line, but he's got no answer at all to Schneider. Schneider just jinks to the left and sails past, so really it does look as though Eric Hellery is nursing that car to the finish.
Bernd Schneider now up into fourth position. The order still Ludwig and Dumbreck at the head of the field. Then the Opel of Manuel Reuter still there in third position. This man in fourth place now, leaving Eric Hellery for dead. And there we see a replay of that overtake.
Eric Hellery struggling big time just to keep the car on the track. He ran wide towards the exit, had to back off, and Bernd Schneider was through.
400 horsepower, 4-litre V8, howling beautifully in the silver Mercedes. The question now is, can he close in on Manuel Reuter and take this battle all the way to the checkered flag? There is Manuel Reuter, third place man. Look back over the crest. Down comes Bernd Schneider, and he is closing in at nearly 2 seconds a lap. It's going to be a real grandstand finish. We're going to take a short break. Join us for more in just a moment. Round 7 of the German Touring Car Masters from the Sachsenring. This is the battle for third and fourth places. Manuel Reuter in the Opel Astra, Bernd Schneider in the Mercedes CLK. And the Mercedes is closing in. Bernd Schneider started from a lowly 11th place, but the big dramas for the Opel runners have been deflating front tyres. 3 cars off the road, 3 cars in the gravel trap.
It's quite amazing, really. Obviously, everybody here running exactly the same tyre. Dunlop supply the tyres to both Mercedes and Opel. It just does appear that the Opel team are not able to make their tyres last as well as Mercedes. There's no chance of Dunlop favouring Mercedes. In fact, before the race weekend starts, a lottery takes place for the teams to pick their tyres through a pure random choice. So really, it's a case of Mercedes making their cars work their tyres better.
6 seconds now only separating the Opel from the Mercedes, and Manuel Reuter throwing up the test again. And it's these long, fast left-handers that seem to be giving the Opel runners the problem.
I wonder now whether the Opel team management have actually been on the radio to tell Reuter that there is a potential problem in those corners. Maybe he's actually having to back off on certain parts of the circuit. Whatever's going on, Schneider is reeling him in, and just look at that Mercedes. It looks perfectly well balanced, even at this late stage of the race.
Well, we're watching the third and fourth place battle, of course, 1 and 2 in the championship, but this is great news for British race fans. Peter Dumbreck still sitting there just half a second behind Klaus Ludwig. Ludwig, the most successful driver ever in German touring cars. What a masterclass for Peter Dumbreck, and what a result, running in second place. Meanwhile, Bernd Schneider closing in again. Norbert Haug, motorsports chief of Mercedes-Benz. Well, he must be thinking now, maybe, just maybe, we could make this a 1-2-3.
He certainly will be thinking along those lines. It's quite a nervous time for him. He's got one of his junior drivers tailing his most senior driver by less than a second as they send Thomas Jaeger's car back out onto the circuit.
Now, Jaeger out there perhaps to just grab a finish and grab some more championship points. Thomas Jaeger, of course, the home hero. Also, this will be a shakedown for Jaeger because he'll get this car out in the second race. And Jaeger, no doubt, just checking those mechanical problems have been cured.
Well, with such a short gap between the first and second race on these race days, it's very important if you have the opportunity to get your car back onto the circuit just to check everything's A-OK before the start of race 2. That's why Joe Winkelhock was so keen to get himself out of the gravel trap.
But still, third and fourth places. Manuel Reuter, second in the championship. Bernd Schneider, championship leader. And the two cars absolutely equally matched. And again, look at this. Bernd Schneider this time right on the limit, right literally on the edge of the track.
Absolutely pushing it flat out. Not too many laps to go now, and the gap visibly closing between himself and Reuter in front.
Don't forget, just 3 points in it in the championship between these two drivers. Reuter at the moment has the track position. Schneider, though, has the pace, the fastest man on the track. And there the caption demonstrating as if we need to see that it's now just 1.8 seconds in it as they come up through the final sequence of chicanes. This is the penultimate lap, and they will be shortly starting the final lap of the race. And I reckon Schneider will gamble and he'll go for it.
Schneider certainly is going for it. He's picked the pace up, but so too has Reuter. He really is pushing the car hard. He's trying to get the car to the checkered flag as quickly as he possibly can, but that will be at the expense of his tyres. Can they make it?
Find out very shortly. Meanwhile, Dumbreck still sitting there coolly behind race leader Klaus Ludwig, and it looks as if it's going to be a record-breaking 35 DTM wins now for Klaus Ludwig. But Bernd Schneider leads this year's championship, and if he finishes just behind Manuel Reuter here, he will still maintain the lead of the championship into the 8th round, the second race here at the Sachsenring, this race circuit right out in the east of Germany. It's used by a lot of the German car makers for testing their road cars. Only runs half a dozen or so race meetings each year. Now, onto the last lap of the race. This is when it's going to be the big charge, I think, from Bernd Schneider. But Manuel Reuter still pushing his pace as fast as he dares. He'll know there's the tyre wear problem on the Opels, but he is going to have to give it absolutely everything to keep Schneider behind him. Schneider taking a very aggressive line down the S's through turns 4 and 5. Now down to the bottom of the hill. This is where the fast corners come up.
As they start rising back up the hill through the left-hander there now, Schneider really is closing in. Reuter there got a bit of a twitch on through that corner. Now he's backing off the throttle, plunging downhill. This is where the cars come under most load in these long left-handers.
Schneider right on the limit behind. One fast left-hander still to go. Then he's climbing up the hill back towards the pits in the final chicane. Bernd Schneider pushing all the way. And again, a big wriggle there from the Opel. It's obviously he's losing grip in the Opel. Schneider, though, keeping the pressure on as they come back up the hill. Schneider in 4th place. Reuter, and another big twitch there from the Opel. And Manuel Reuter's now having to take defensive lines as they drop back down through the finals. Oh, and he's gone right off the racing line. Manuel Reuter off and bam into the barriers. Reuter almost a passenger there in the Opel Coupe, out of control, and exactly the same place as the other Opel Astras. But it's Mercedes 1, 2, 3. Peter Dumbreck a fine second place as Klaus Ludwig puts himself into that unassailable 35 win position, and Bernd Schneider crosses the line in 3rd place. Superb result for Mercedes-Benz. Delight on the pit wall. But the Opel team, well, they must just feel so bad. It's all to play for now in round 8 of the Touring Car Masters as Mercedes-Benz celebrate success. Marcel Thiemann coming across the line, 5th position for him. Delighted, punches the steering wheel, makes it 4 Mercedes in the top 6. Ludwig and Dumbreck, Schneider 3rd, Eric Hellery, the best of the Opels, in 4th, Marcel Thiemann 5th, and Michael Bartels in 6th.
And Joe Winkelhock there, and Manuel Reuter looking deflated, to say the least. Manuel Reuter really absolutely beside himself. He's lost his championship chances at the moment there, but the most important thing now is to get these cars back to the pits, to get them ready and re-prepared for race 2.
Gullwing Opel Astra of Winkelhock on its way back to the pits, but delight and celebration for Klaus Ludwig, 50 years of age and still winning and still as quick as the young boys. Bernd Schneider, though, championship leader now on 94 points. Manuel Reuter not scoring. He stays on 79. Winkelhock on 67. Ludwig now up to 4th in the championship on 54. Onto the grid for round 8 of the championship. It's been reduced to 24 laps because of the tyre wear problems. Pole position, the man who won last time out, Klaus Ludwig. Peter Dumbreck alongside him on the front row. Row 2 of the starting grid, Bernd Schneider and Eric Hellery, 3rd and 4th. Hellery the first of the Opel V8s. Behind him, Marcel Thiemann in the Mercedes-Benz, Michael Bartels in the Opel. Another Opel of Timo Scheider, 7th on the grid, and alongside him, Darren Turner had a good run to 8th in the Mercedes-Benz CLK, the Rosberg prepared car. He's followed by Christian Menzel and Marcel Fessler, completing the top 10, ahead of Chris Nissan and Laurent Aiello in the 2 Audis. Only 2 out of the 3 Audis, though, are going to make the start of this race. Manuel Reuter and Stefano Modena due to start on row 7 of the grid, but Reuter is at the end of the pit lane. And behind them, Alpsen and Winkelhock are taking their places on the grid. And that means that Manuel Reuter is going to have to start right at the back, behind Lamy and Jaeger. His only good news is that he doesn't have to find a way to go past Abt, whose Audi has been retired.
And Manuel Reuter there at the end of the pit lane, he doesn't even get to start on the grid with the rest of them. The damage too great on his car to ready it in time to join on the grid. He's had to start from the pit lane.
Now the big news is with the Opel runners. They have in fact been reducing that amount of camber on the front end of the cars. The race distance has also been shortened from 30 to 24 laps because the Mercedes also were finishing with their tyres right through to the bias belting. So now the lights go from red to green, rolling start again. Peter Dumbreck going all the way this time with Klaus Ludwig, but Ludwig now getting the jump. He is the master of the rolling starts. The 2 Mercedes-Benz, and then Bernd Schneider being forced just a little bit wide. Eric Hellery up from 6th place on the grid. He has got 3rd position. Schneider has to settle into 4th. Bartels 5th, then Thiemann 6th ahead of Scheider, and then Fessler 7th and 8th places. And one of the Audis there, a little bit of a twitch and a weed. Chris Nissan working his way up the field, and I've got to say, the Audi's starting to look a little bit better. Well, they're doing a little bit better than these two. That's Menzel and Alpsen. Uwe Alpsen trying to make up ground from the tail of the field, clashes with Christian Menzel, and the cars get going, but right down at the very back. And just looking down from the pack, Ludwig at the head of the pack. Where is that white and yellow Opel Astra? He still hasn't managed to catch up with the rest of the pack, so it's not looking too good for Manuel Reuter at the moment. And that is very good news for the man with the yellow mirrors, because in 4th position there, Bernd Schneider in the Mercedes-Benz, sandwiched between a pair of Opel Astras. Eric Hellery in front, Michael Bartels behind. It's Ludwig and then Dumbreck again, riding shotgun for the Mercedes-Benz. Ludwig is starting to make a bit of a break and trying desperately to find a way past now Eric Hellery.
Eric Hellery made a fantastic start there. He squeezed himself past Bernd Schneider there. Fantastic job there, but can he hold on to it? The Mercedes clearly coming into their own after a few laps around this circuit. And looking further back, that's Darren Turner holding off Smoking Joe Winkelhock.
Oh, could you just imagine that a few years ago? Darren Turner had been doing that in the British Touring Car Championship. Now, that would be something. Now, let's take another look at that Menzel and Alpsen clash.
Well, really, it's just a case of the 2 Opel drivers tripping each other up in the opening lap. They're right at the tail end of the field, but that really is not very good team tactics from Opel.
Brits doing okay at the moment. Darren Turner still fighting with Smoking Joe Winkelhock down at the tail end of the top 10. Stefano Modena now closing in on that battle as well. Now Modena, another driver starting from nearly the back. He got punted off into the gravel on the first race. He's found his way down the inside of Smoking Joe, and I reckon that was team orders, because he is again another driver who needs to score points here, closing in on the tail of Darren Turner.
And yet again, you can just see how the Opel's really not very comfortable over this bumpy surface. And that really is one of the reasons why the tyres are taking such a hammering. It's not just the camber. The fact that they're not riding the road quite so smoothly as the Mercedes is really punishing those Dunlops.
And sparks coming from underneath the Mercedes and the Opels over some of those bumps. Meanwhile, Timo Scheider and Marcel Fessler battling for 7th and 8th places. Scheider in the blue and white Opel Coupe. Marcel Fessler in the black Mercedes, the teammate of race leader Klaus Ludwig. We're now catching up with Ludwig, Dumbreck. Then comes Eric Hellery, still there in 3rd place. And look back again, there's the battle, 7th and 8th positions. Timo Scheider, Marcel Fessler, the Swiss driver trying every which way to find a way past him.
Fessler really getting the inside of his car over the apex curbing. If you notice, actually, a lot of the corners, the driver's using the curbing and a bit more. Very flat curbing here because this racetrack is used a lot for motorcycle racing, so the curbing is very shallow. The fastest lap there for Peter Dumbreck. He's holding guard in second place, but he's still travelling pretty quickly.
Well over 150 kilometres now. That is 95 miles an hour, twists, turns and all. And the car throws up the dust there. That was Michael Bartels, Marcel Tiemens, then Scheider and Fessler still continuing that battle for 7th and 8th places. Meanwhile, Uwe Alten, there you can see that damage.
Well, the carbon fibre bodywork just ripped to bits. The slightest contact really does damage these cars, and damage to the front end means that the aerodynamics of the front air dams just at the lower front end are not working, so the car not really able to keep up the pace.
Bernd Schneider there, striking the sparks with the under tray of his car, now up into the fastest lap, beating Peter Dumbreck, 152 kilometres an hour for Bernd Schneider. And first, second, third and fourth starting to make a break for it. 18 laps of the race still to go. And that indicates 6 have been completed. Peter Dumbreck pitboard hung out for him. Eric Hellery still there in that third place. And Hellery now in that very difficult position because he's having to try and watch his rearview mirrors, plan where he's defending from Bernd Schneider. But at the same time, he's really wanting to keep up the pressure and keep up the attack on Peter Dumbreck. And I've got to say, Peter Dumbreck has done a superb job here of pacing himself just right to protect Ludwig, but go fast enough to allow himself to keep the race pace.
Well, he has done a fantastic job doing just that with Bernd Schneider there scoring yet another fastest lap. The pressure now on Eric Hellery. He really will be focusing on the car behind and expect these two to drop away from the lead two.
Bernd Schneider coming up on terms, of course, while you're doing these very, very quick laps. And there you can see, in actual fact, very little in it between Hellery and Schneider. The close racing, such a feature of the German Touring Car Masters Series. And again, spitting the flames from underneath. That's the striker plates underneath the bodywork, hitting the ground there over some of those bumps. And Bernd Schneider, it's all very well for Bernd Schneider to set these blazing laps, but of course, when you've got to overtake, you've got to come off the racing line, and that's when you start going slower.
Again, pitboard there for Peter Dumbreck, still in position 2, 17 laps to go.
And right in the distance now, Michael Bartels in that 5th place in the Opel Astra. Eric Hellery throws up the dirt, kicking a bit of sand in the face of Bernd Schneider, taking a tighter line, but also a little bit of a defensive mode there, throwing up a bit of that dirt, perhaps as a distraction.
Well, it's an old trick. It sometimes pays off, but not really against someone as experienced as Bernd Schneider. Now, that pressure from Schneider seeming to pay off. Hellery really just sliding a little bit wide as he goes through that sequence of corners. So the grip level's going down slightly on that Opel, and Bernd Schneider really lining up just to pick him off.
Well, Schneider, perhaps with the exception of race leader Klaus Ludwig, one of the most experienced drivers in the series, 36 years old, originally from Munich, now lives in Monte Carlo, and there a great overtaking manoeuvre. The Swiss Marcel Fessler dives down the inside of Timo Scheider. That really has been the product of a battle going on since the very start of this race.
And another example of an Astra really starting to slide around on its tyres.
Talking about sliding around on its tyres, just look at this tremendous battle here. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th places. Darren Turner heading the pack. A big sideways tweak on his car. Thomas Jaeger there in the 11th place in the silver Mercedes, looking very spectacular. And Stefano Modena, Joe Winkelhock and Manuel Reuter. And Reuter is really not making much of an impression on this pack. He's down there at the tail of it in 13th place. Again, very sideways from Jaeger. Meanwhile, riding with Christian Menzel, fighting back on the tail of the Audi of Laura. Oh, and gone goes the Audi.
Yeah, those Audis really do look a handful, and Aiello there just couldn't quite hang on to the tail end of his car, and he's into the gravel. He's rejoining, but really, he's a long way down now.
Aiello and Chris Nissan there. In fact, Aiello rejoining at the back behind Chris Nissan, having a pretty rough time getting these Audis to work on such a bumpy circuit. And a great battle now brewing 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th places. Bartels, Tiemann, Fessler and Scheider. And Scheider being dropped a little bit now in the blue and white Opel Astra for the tail end of this battle. He really is starting... Oh, and you can see him there all the way off across the grass and back onto the tarmac.
Yeah, that Astra really sliding around more and more, and now he's gone wide. He's actually pulled some of the underfloor off, so expect him to be dropping backward rapidly.
Well, Marcel Tiemann closing in now like a train on Michael Bartels, being followed by Fessler. And the two Mercedes again seem to have the legs of the Opel, and headlights ablaze now, trying to do absolutely everything to distract Michael Bartels, himself actually no mean driver, Formula One experience with the Zach Speed team a few years ago, but these Mercedes really do seem to have the legs of the Opel.
Just watching the Opel running wide again. It's that corner again, Opel corner, the car's just running wide, struggling for grip on that right front there, and just in the background you can see some carbon fibre flying off into the air, so the aerodynamics now won't be working very well on that Opel, so he'll be dropping backwards extremely rapidly. On board with Thiemann though, he's got Bartels right in front of him, and Bartels kicking the dust up in his face. Thiemann's tried flashing his headlights, that hasn't worked. It might work when you're trying to just get past your teammate, but when you're trying to get past an Opel and you're in a Mercedes, you've really got to try harder than that.
And Stefano Modena heading another 5-car train, 10th down to 15th place. Great race. Join us for more after the break. Tremendous battle still goes on, just on the edge of the top 10 for round 8 of the German Touring Car Masters. Darren Turner in 9th place, making a break away from this pack now. Stefano Modena, Thomas Jaeger, Joe Winkelhock and Manuel Reuter all going absolutely hammer and tongs.
Again on board with Thiemann, this is a really tight battle. Got Bartels in front of him, he's coming down the downhill start-finish line into the first corner, and this one of the corners you really should pull that Opel in. You can just see how much it's closing under braking and cornering, but the Opels do seem to have just a fractional advantage when they get onto a straight piece of road.
And there you can hear the howl of the 4-litre V8 400-plus horsepower engine of the Mercedes. Bartels and Thiemann fighting for 5th and 6th places. This is the dogfight down in the back. Winkelhock still there in that 11th position now. Meanwhile, Marcel Thiemann again tries to find a way past Michael Bartels for that 5th position. Ahead of them, of course, it's Ludwig from Dumbreck, Hellery in the Opel 3rd, Schneider, the championship leader, in 4th position. Then Michael Bartels, pursued by Marcel Thiemann, and great battles all the way up and down the field.
That really is a traffic jam. Very difficult to drive in a situation like this. You're trying to get past the guy in front, but you've got someone like Joe Winkelhock crawling over the rear end of your car. What do? You've just got to try and drive as fast as possible without leaving the door open.
Oh, and that's just what Thiemann's just done there, and that has allowed Marcel Fessler to take advantage, and he is now going to take over the challenge on Michael Bartels in the Opel. So a great move there, up into 6th position by Marcel Fessler. The order, Bartels, Fessler, Thiemann there in 7th place, then looking back to Timo Scheider in the blue Opel Astra, then Darren Turner in 9th position, then comes this battle, Modena, Jaeger, Winkelhock and Reuter all absolutely glued together. And I've got to say, bad news for Manuel Reuter, he's got that lot to get past if he's going to get anywhere near championship points.
Well, that's bad news for Manuel Reuter. He's got to overtake each and every one of those cars. Well, maybe not, one less. That's Stefano Modena making his job that bit easier.
Well, Modena in the kitty litter, and I'm just wondering again, is this the war of attrition on the rubber wear? All these cars running identical control Dunlop tyres, but it does seem that the Mercedes-Benz cars are experiencing less tyre wear. As we take another look there with Stefano Modena.
Yep, in the middle of the corner with Stefano Modena. He's just lost the rear end of the car midway through the bend. He really has. He's probably just hit a bump, just got away from him slightly, but he just doesn't have the grip to get the car back. He can't get the car back out of the gravel trap now, but looking at it again from the outside, tail end just getting out of shape, but again, not enough grip available at the tyres to hold the car in that slide, and he slides into the kitty litter.
Battle still on, 5th, 6th and 7th places. Bartels, Fessler and Thiemann. Two Mercedes-Benz ganging up on this Opel Astra. 5th place, Bartels, Michael Bartels, very much again a home hero. The Germans love their home drivers here. Marcel Fessler, a Swiss driver. Oh, and Fessler very aggressive there, muscles Bartels out of the way. And thank you very much, says Marcel Thiemann, follows through. Nice job.
Well, Bartels had just run wide in that previous corner, left himself slightly vulnerable, and that was more than enough of an invitation, and he lost 2 places in one go.
Thiemann on the tail of Marcel Fessler, now running in 4th and 5th positions. Bartels down to 6th. Meanwhile, at the head of the field, Klaus Ludwig, Peter Dumbreck, Then the orange car of Eric Ellery, the Frenchman, still there in third place, and a demon start got him there ahead of Bernd Schneider.
Now back on board with Marcel Tiemann, going back to that earlier overtaking manoeuvre. The Opels run slightly wide. The black Mercedes just tagged him in the door, but both Mercedes get through. So 2 Mercedes versus 1 Opel. It's not really fair.
That means 3 Mercedes in a row, 4th, 5th and 6th positions then. Bernd Schneider, Marcel Fessler and Marcel Tiemann. And Bernd Schneider closing in again on the Frenchman, Eric Ellery. Graduated through Formula 3000, he's raced GT cars, he's tested Formula 1 cars. Eric Ellery, some determined competitor, the fastest man in an Opel this weekend, and he is determined to hold on to the checkered flag ahead of Bernd Schneider. The team will be happy if he does that. Anything that robs Schneider of more points will make it easier for Manuel Reuter, who's still languishing down the field. And there you can see P1 for Klaus Ludwig. And he knows that it's Dumbreck and Ellery right behind him, but Bernd Schneider still there in that 4th place. It's a game of cat and mouse, and Eric Ellery defending like crazy. And the howl of the V8 engines echoing round the Sachsenring. Tremendous race here for a capacity crowd. Well over 60,000 people crammed into the grandstands. And they're seeing the Mercedes versus Opel battle they came to watch. And it's Bernd Schneider, championship leader, really does need to find a way past Eric Ellery. And I reckon he's going to just push him into making a mistake.
Well, yet again, Bernd Schneider pressurising one of the Opels in the closing stages of the race. Eric Ellery really just hanging on in there. He's running a very strong pace throughout the race, but that pace now just slightly starting to drop away. The Opel not quite keeping up with the lead 2 cars, and Bernd Schneider really pushing him hard.
Peter Dumbreck now dropping back a little bit from the Klaus Ludwig car, and I'm just wondering whether that's team orders again, because Dumbreck has been holding station. There he is, just on the right of our screen. He's dropped back a little, and I suspect this could be in case that Bernd Schneider gets past Eric Ellery. He may well give up his 2nd place to allow Bernd Schneider to score more points.
Well, yet again, Mercedes teamwork in this DTM Championship, renowned. But certainly at the moment, Peter Dumbreck following Klaus Ludwig and really learning an extremely valuable lesson here today. It's his best result of the season so far, and I'm sure by following so closely in Klaus Ludwig's wheel tracks, he's giving himself a much better chance of a race victory later in this season.
I'm old enough to remember the words of the great Sterling Moss when he said he never learned better than when he was following in the real tracks of the Mercedes-Benz of Juan Manuel Fangio back in the 1950s. And Moss always reckoned that was the way to learn your racecraft. Peter Dumbreck doing that absolutely perfectly at the moment. Meanwhile, still there in 4th position, and Bernd Schneider's starting to look more aggressive. He's coming off the racing line. He's really now piling the pressure on Eric Ellery, who must be just about going cross-eyed. One eye on the windscreen, one eye on the rear-view mirrors. What is Eric Ellery going to do?
Well, he's having to drive a more and more defensive line just to keep Bernd Schneider at bay. Bernd Schneider, on the other hand, his car really handling well again in the closing stages of this race. He's able to put that Mercedes on pretty much whatever racing line he wants. So it really does seem to be only a matter of time. But Eric Ellery, a fiery driver at the best of times. If anyone can hold Bernd Schneider behind him, it's him.
Well, Eric Ellery still has the 2nd fastest lap of this race, a 150.7. Oh, and smoke from the front of Ellery's car. He's trying to slow it down. And that was the classic, wasn't it, Chris? Another tyre failure.
I really can't believe it, and I don't think Norbert Howe can either. It certainly does look like yet another right front tyre failure for the Opel team.
And that is very good news indeed for Bernd Schneider. As we see a replay of that, Chris, talk us through that.
Well, just through that long left-hander, the tyre's obviously blown. He's arrived at this corner, the tyre's deflated, the car's just running on that wheel rim, and there's no way you can turn a car into a corner if you're running metal to tarmac.
Well, Chris, as a driver, what do you do in that situation?
Well, you crash, I'm afraid, and you end up very deep in the gravel, just the same way as Eric Ellery has. If you haven't got any tyres touching the tarmac, there's no way you can steer a car through the corners.
I've got to say, one of the recovery drives here has to be Timo Scheider. He had one of the biggest grassy moments we've seen, but he's still running and he's still looking pretty good indeed. He's still there in 7th place, chasing Michael Bartels in the fellow Opel and holding back Darren Turner.
Well, I have to say, ever since that piece of carbon fibre bodywork flew off his Opel, he's actually picked the pace up. So something for the aerodynamicists at Opel to keep a lookout for.
Well, there we see Timo Scheider still there, tucked in between Michael Bartels in the white Opel Astra and the white and silver Mercedes-Benz of Darren Turner. And Darren Turner having a very good race here. Both he and Peter Dumbreck there in the top 10, scoring the championship points. And not only that, just learning so much in terms of racecraft.
Well, it's been a great race for Darren Turner. It's really been long overdue, it has to be said as well. He just kept his nose clean. He stayed out of trouble in that first race, which gave him the good starting position he needed for this second race. And here's the result.
Across the line in fourth place, Marcel Fessler, followed by Marcel Thiemann. Then comes the Michael Bartels, Timo Scheider and Darren Turner battle down into turn one. Just 3 laps of the race still to go. And I suspect that the Mercedes-Benz drivers will have seen the Opels in all sorts of tyre trouble, and they will be piling on the pressure in the hope they can make yet another of the Opel V8s shred its tyres.
Well, I suspect Darren Turner there, he'll keep a watching brief. He'll know exactly what the Opel drivers have in store for them if they keep the pace up, and he'll be hoping just to pick up a few places if their tyres fail. And there's Eric Hellery, not looking very happy.
Well, Eric Hellery's face, I think, says more than words can say at the moment, having lost that third position in the race, and more to the point, vitally needed championship points for the Opel teams. And this race, again, being fought out between Opel, General Motors and Daimler Chrysler, Mercedes-Benz. Darren Turner very much doing his bit for the Mercedes-Benz teams, currently the 6th Mercedes-Benz on the track, 8th place overall. And another fastest lap for Bernd Schneider, and Schneider really is flying down now into the 1:19s, a new race lap record for the Sachsenring, for the DTM cars. And Schneider's starting to close in on Peter Dumbreck. I'm just wondering whether team orders will come in here. You can see him drifting the car, beautiful four-wheel drift there. Meanwhile, the 2 Opel V8s, Michael Bartels and Timo Scheider, continue to throw up the dirt, and maybe Darren Turner's got a bit of a problem now. He's having to work hard to keep Thomas Jaeger behind him.
Well, I think Darren's just kept behind these 2 Opels. They're really scrapping away, so no team orders there. There's only 1.5 laps to go, so he'll just want to make sure he makes it to the checkered flag unscathed.
Great drive by Darren Turner, an even better drive by Peter Dumbreck, it's got to be said. Second place still. Darren Turner soaking up the pressure now from Thomas Jaeger and completing the top 10 behind them, just at a mile distance now. Joe Winkelhock closing in on his Holzer Opel team car. This time the dirt being thrown up by Thomas Jaeger. His D2 AMG team Mercedes there, the silver car, chasing Darren Turner, who in turn is chasing Michael Bartels and Timo Scheider, as onto the last lap of the race comes the race leader. Peter Dumbreck has responded, I noticed, to the lap speed of Bernd Schneider behind him. He's closed back in on Klaus Ludwig. It's Ludwig, Dumbreck, first and second. The championship leader, Bernd Schneider, third position through the final sequence of corners. Just 3 kilometres to go, and this is going to be the best result ever by a Brit in the DTM. And Bernd Schneider still absolutely driving the wheels off that Mercedes CLK. Four-wheel drifts everywhere. Watch him power slide it out of the corner here. Bernd Schneider might have worn tyres, but he is pushing every inch of the way. Again, uses all the tarmac. And Peter Dumbreck must be keeping one eye in his mirrors now. He would hate to take the championship leader off.
Well, sometimes the harder you try, the slower you go. And Bernd Schneider actually dropping away fractionally from Peter Dumbreck. That will be a great relief for Peter. He's only got a few corners to go, and he'll be desperate to hang on to that second place.
And looking at the lap times, it's not a case of him dropping back, it's a case of Dumbreck going faster. Peter Dumbreck is learning all the time. He's getting quicker and quicker, and this closing lap of the race is going to be one of Dumbreck's quickest, and it's bringing him right back onto the tail. Norbert Haug all of a sudden starting to look a bit worried. You could have a 3-car pile-up here. Meanwhile, through the last chicane, it's Klaus Ludwig is heading for that victory. Win number 36 crosses the line and smokes the tyres in delight, to the delight of the Mercedes-Benz pit crew. Peter Dumbreck, a brilliant second place. Bernd Schneider third. Marcel Fessler throws up the dust on his way to fourth. Mercedes-Benz dominate at the Sachsenring. Every car in the top 5 places. Well, Norbert Haug normally on a Formula 1 pit wall as the dust continues to fly for the rest of the runners. Darren Turner makes it across the line in 8th position. What a finish there. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th places all completely locked together. But flying the flag for Mercedes-Benz, Klaus Ludwig, 2 wins in a row, 36 in his career. And to put that into perspective, Bernd Schneider, the next most successful driver, 24 wins for him. Klaus Ludwig then taking that victory, but just 2 seconds covering himself, Peter Dumbreck and Bernd Schneider in a brilliant race for the young Brit. And Marcel Fessler 4th, Marcel Thiemann 5th, and Michael Bartels, the first of the Opals, in 6th. Delight for Klaus Ludwig as the German national anthem sounds over the Sachsenring, but jubilation too for Peter Dumbreck on the left, joining 2 of touring car racing's greats, Klaus Ludwig and Bernd Schneider. Peter Dumbreck makes it onto the top of the podium at the Sachsenring. But Bernd Schneider is at the top of the leaderboard.